lots of middle school in attendance today, and thank you to all of you students. I can't wait to get started. And now that we are officially at the half hour, I'm going to jump in. My name is Miss Daniels, and I am a 3D modeler by trade. I have been doing 3D design like this for quite a while now, and I'm so excited to be showing y'all how to make this pumpkin that you can see here. I actually just printed this on my Robo E4 about 30 minutes before this began. So this is what we're going to be building today, but of course you'll get a chance to make it your own. So again, everyone who is joining now, please make sure you are in Tinkercad.com and that your students are in your class as well, as I will be doing this at a speed that you can follow along. So while everyone's still getting set up and ready to go, a few reasons why we love Tinkercad. This is more for the teachers than the students, but just it's free. It has the classroom management tools that you can use as a teacher, and it has built-in tutorials. So if you didn't know that and you always want to learn more, there's a whole learn and tutorial section built into Tinkercad, which is great. And you can do some really cool things in it today, like the pumpkin. So thank you again, everyone who's been popping in the chat. Teachers, you are my eyes and ears into your classroom. So if you need me to repeat something, show something again, please let me know in the chat. I will be showing everything more than once, just because I understand that you may miss it the first time and may need to see it again. So let me know if there's any of that. But students, if you do miss something the first time, I will show everything at least twice. All right, and this is brought to you by Mimeo STEM. We have a whole bunch of fun STEM products, 3D printers included. So I'll talk a little bit about what you can do for 3D printing these creations at the end if you have 3D printers in your school as well. But let's jump in. So here we go. This is my finished sample, the one that was in the picture on the last slide and the one I have printed here. And I'm going to show you all how to do this right from the beginning. So first things first, from your main Tinkercad dashboard, you want to make sure you are on your Designs tab. So yours may be completely empty. Yours may look like this, where it's got a whole bunch of different things in it. But what we're going to do to get started is on the far right-hand side, there's a blue button that says Create, and click Create 3D Design. That will allow you to open a new environment to do your 3D design in. Again, because I'm going to show everything multiple times, from your Designs page in Tinkercad, you click Create and then 3D Design, and that'll generate a brand new environment for you to do your designing in. First thing, we want to change the name because your teacher does not want to have to organize and deal with 20-some different names, all that are very silly gibberish. Like mine came in as the Magnificent Jofo Lottie, of course. So click up there and you're going to put down your name. So I'm going to write out my name and then an underscore. If you know an underscore, if you don't, you can use just a different dash or something, and then pumpkin. So for my fourth graders, pumpkin is spelled Pumpkin. And you can always go back and change that name later if you didn't catch it the first time. But your teacher can write that up on the board if you need help spelling it. Once you have your file named with your name and the word pumpkin, we're going to build the base of our pumpkin shape using what's called a scribble tool. And that will allow us to create a really interesting shape. So, you know, pumpkins aren't perfect circles. They aren't perfectly round. They all have a little bit of character to them. So the scribble tool is a really good way to get that in your design. So to add a scribble tool, you click on it and click again into your scene. And that will open a new sort of 2D environment. Now, what we want to do with this two-dimensional environment is draw If you think about drawing a pumpkin on paper, you would draw, something like this maybe. If I was drawing this as just a regular pumpkin, that might be what mine looks like. But because I'm going to actually take this drawing that I've done and spin it around, I only want to be drawing half of my pumpkin shape. So I'm going to click the undo button, remove what I already drew. And you're going to think about what a pumpkin would look like if it was just kind of taken a little slice out of the middle, like a piece of pie. So I am going to start on one of these lines and, draw some sort of weird pumpkin-y shape, not perfectly round. I want it to look a little silly. Mine kind of looks like an ear. It does not matter because whatever sort of C-ish shape you draw or ear type shape you draw, we're going to be spinning it around. So this would make a very tall pumpkin as I rotate it around. If I did something like this, I could make a very fat pumpkin. But notice I'm going a little bit in at the top and a little bit in at the bottom. Those are the two main things that are going to help it really look like a pumpkin. When you're happy with your single line design, you can go ahead and just make it a little thicker if you'd like. This won't probably matter, but it's nice to do just to get a little bit of extra thickness. Or you can even use the draw shape button here to just make this completely solid on the inside. Notice as I draw this line that it fills it all in. So I'm going to show all of this one more time for my advanced students who are thinking I'm going really, really slow. Keep checking in with me, but feel free to start adding additional things that I'm not going to show you, like leaves. Squash have leaves, or other things that could go in your pumpkin environment. But keep looking back here to make sure you don't miss any of the steps to make your actual pumpkin. So again, to grab the scribble tool, you just click and drag into your scene, let go, and now I'm going to just go straight to the draw shape tool here. That's kind of a blobby looking shape with a pencil, and draw my final pumpkin shape this way. When I am happy with this shape, I'm going to click done, and now I can be back in my 3D environment and take a look at it here. Now, the color it is in your computer does not control what color it will be when it comes out into the real world. This is determined by what color of filament is in your 3D printer, but I like to look at an orange pumpkin. So I'm going to make my pumpkin a nice shade of orange. So you can change the color by clicking where it says solid and changing it to a more pumpkin shade. There's yellow pumpkins, red pumpkins. I'll stick with a classic. Now that I have this weird shape that looks absolutely nothing like a pumpkin, I need to set it up for me to be able to rotate it. So to do that, I'm going to click on it, and I can tell it's selected because it has this dark blue outline going or this light blue outline going all around it. And I'm going to look for these little double-sided arrows. These are your rotation arrows. And I'm going to sort of line up at the side of it. So you can use your view cube up here and click where it says right to get lined up perfectly on this side. And then I'm just going to rotate it perfectly 90 degrees. And you want to make sure you're rotating it so that whatever the top of your intended pumpkin is on the top. And again, because these are such silly shapes, it doesn't really matter. One more time to rotate your pumpkin shape to something that is going to be upright. I'm looking at these double-sided arrows, and I'm staying inside that blue circle. That's going to help me lock it in to this 90-degree angle. And when it's there, I let go. Now, from this window here, I want to make this thinner. So I want to make this not quite so wide, and I want to bring it up so it's not sticking halfway out the bottom. To bring it up onto my work plane, Tinkercad has added this cool button on the top right corner that looks like a box sitting on top of a work plane. When you click on it, it will actually just pop your object straight up to the work plane so that it is nice and sitting on that surface. Again, to move that up, I'm just clicking on this drop to work plane button on the right-hand side. If you're working on a device that has a keyboard, you can also just click the key D on your keyboard. You'll notice when I mouse over that D is shown in green, that tells you your keyboard shortcuts, so you can start moving faster as you use those. All right, now I have my pumpkin slice sitting on my work plane, and I want to make it thinner because I'm going to rotate this around. So I'm going to take this little black square that's down at the bottom of my object. You'll notice there's 4 of them. I want one of the ones that is on the flat side here, and I'm just going to drag that all the way back until I see the number 2 or very close to 2 on this edge. You can actually even click on that as well. So you can set yours to either 2 millimeters or even 1 millimeter, but you want it really, really thin. I think I'll keep mine at 2 just to give me a little bit more flexibility with that. All right, one more time to adjust your thickness, you're using these little black squares on the bottom and you're making your object really thin. Okay, now is where it gets fun and where all the magic happens. So we're going to be using the duplicate and repeat command, which is a really powerful command in Tinkercad. And I'm going to do a quick demonstration, so don't follow along right now, just watch and see what I do so you can understand how this tool works. With my object selected, I'm going to click on that stack of papers that says duplicate and repeat. And when I click on that, it flashes for a second, but nothing happens. Now I can go ahead and start making adjustments to my object, like rotating it a little bit or sliding it to a different location. I can make it a little bit smaller if I wanted to. There's all sorts of different edits that I can make, but I'm just going to do a few to demonstrate right now. So I've made a few edits, but I've not clicked outside my pumpkin shape yet. Now I'm going to click on that button again. Notice what it does every time I click on that button. It is replicating exactly what I did between clicking on that button. So this is the stack of papers button in the top left. It's called duplicate and repeat. And that is how you can take something simple like this shape and turn it into a pumpkin. So what I want to do for this, to make my actual pumpkin that looks just like this sample one I have here, I'm going to set up one more thing so that all of my adjustments are easy and ready to go. I'm going to bring in this ruler tool from the top right and drag that into my scene. That just gives me the ability to be a little bit more precise with things. And it gives me a really cool feature over here, this little circle with 3 lines in it. When you mouse over it, it says use endpoint. I'm going to click on that one more time, and it'll switch to saying use midpoint. So to repeat that, we have the ruler tool in the top right. Bring that into my scene, and I want to click on these 3 lines in the circle until it says use midpoint. Now all of the edits I'm going to be doing to my object are going to come from the middle of my pumpkin shape rather than from this front corner. And if you miss that step, that is a-okay. It's not going to make a huge difference as we go about doing this. All right, now get ready to follow along. So at this point, you should have gone into the scribble tool, drawn yourself a pumpkin shape, rotated it using these arrows to get it to stand right side up, and shrunk it so it's not very wide. We want a nice thin slice. And then we added our ruler tool and clicked on this until it said use midpoint. I can tell it's on the midpoint because these green lines are actually pointing towards the middle of my object rather than towards this corner. All right, so now that all of that is set up, click on this duplicate and repeat button. Again, that is the one that looks like a stack of papers. And when I click on it, it flashed, but nothing else happened. Now to make my festive little pumpkin, I want to rotate my pumpkin just a little bit. Now, if I stay inside this circle, I am not liking that angle at all. It's going way too far. But if I move my mouse outside the circle, now I can move it just the littlest bit. So I'm going 5 to 10 degrees. That's all. I am not going very far. Even 10 is looking a little far. I want to make sure I'm overlapping with the other slice of my pumpkin pretty well. So I'm setting mine up to -5. And I let go. And then I want to scale my whole pumpkin down just a little bit, but I want it to go from that middle. And so I'm going to use these white squares instead of the black ones to scale in all of the directions. And when I do that, I'm going to hold down the Shift key on my keyboard and the Alt key on my keyboard. And I'm just going to make this, try and figure out how to make it just the right amount smaller. If I am running into issues where it's trying to make it too small, you can change your snap grid over here from 1 millimeter down to 1/4 of a millimeter or 0.1 millimeters. That way you can do more fine-tuned adjustments. So I will change mine to something smaller and then be able to adjust my pumpkin slice to be just a little bit bigger than the other one. Oops. This is where you get to have a little bit of fun precision work. But it's important to set this first thing up really well, because once this first 2 slices are lined up perfectly, you will be able to duplicate and repeat this like I was showing earlier. So it will just repeat a whole bunch of times. And now I'm going to slide this a little bit over, so I'm kind of lining up these center points here. And to move it, I just clicked and dragged. So I'm trying to line up the middle part of my pumpkin pretty well and making sure I'm not going too far outside away from my original one. Once I like how these two look relative to each other, it's getting a little smaller, it's going a little bit around. Once you're happy with it, you're going to click on that stack of papers button multiple times to create a whole series of these around your pumpkin. So do anywhere from 4 to 6 or so of them. I might have done 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, somewhere from 4 to 8. Again, this is a really casual kind of a thing. It's not super precise. You can have some creativity with it. But on this final pumpkin that you can see here, we're actually creating just one of these little ridges. And we're going to take this one little chunk and repeat it a whole bunch of times to make the pumpkin shape. All right, I'm going to pause for a second here. Can the teachers, if anyone is available in the chat, let me know if you are keeping up or if you need me to go back and show any of that again. By the way, thank you to those of you who have been chatting. I have been watching, so appreciate the feedback from y'all in the field. Okay, I heard nothing about needing to see it again, so I'm going to keep moving. Once you have a nice sort of part of a pumpkin here, and yours looks something like this. You can click outside of it. You're free to release your duplicate and repeat. Also, to answer the questions in the chat, yes, this is being recorded. This will get published out on our MimioSTEM YouTube page, and by registering for this, you will also get an email with the recording link. And Miss Minette, yes, this is really cool. I agree. So now that you have this, I'm going to click and grab all of it. And with it selected, thank you, Braden, for putting that YouTube link in the chat. That's just to our page in general. You can subscribe there to get notified of any new videos. But with this all selected, again, to grab it all, I'm going to just click and drag a big box. That grabs everything in your scene. You can click on the group button, and we're going to group this all together so we don't accidentally pull it apart or mess it up while we're going through the next steps. But I'm going to do union and group, which is Control G. It is this button that's sort of a square and a circle combined. And when it groups, now I will have the one light blue outline around all of my different shapes instead of around each one individually. So again, to show that, to select everything, I'm just using my left mouse button to click and drag a box. And then I will click on the group button here, and it will combine all of these into a single object. Once I have my object, I can duplicate it again. So this time, I'm going to use that same stack of papers button, click on duplicate. Only now I want to create a mirror image of it. So we have this, and I want to essentially flip it around. So you end up with something like this. So I'm going to click on the mirror button. I think it used to be called the flip button, but it is sitting here with mirror. And when I click on it, I get these large, thick arrows on my environment. And now I'm looking from the top of my pumpkin now, and I want to flip it this way. I want to flip it along this flat edge here. So I'm choosing the arrow that's actually going perpendicular to that. So this is our lengthwise here, and I want to flip it this way. You can see there's a, let me zoom in a little better here for you. You can see there's a orange sort of ghost image of what it'll look like. And that will take my duplicate option and copy it in mirror image of what it was. So to show that one more time, I have my object selected. I've clicked duplicate, that stack of papers. And now I'm going to click mirror in the top right. That's the one that has two triangles on either side of a line. And click on the very thick arrow here to make it mirror image across. With it mirror imaged, I can now slide it up into position. And if you want to make sure it's staying perfectly precisely in your orientation, if you hold down the Shift key, it will lock it so I can't drag it side to side. It stays perfectly lined up. So there we go. And now we have a cool sort of a fan shape for our pumpkin. Now, everything else you need to be able to finish this pumpkin are tools we've already used. So I'm going to go through this really quick, but then I'll show it to you again. I'm going to grab everything, group it together. I'm going to use the duplicate and repeat button and just rotate this around until I like its orientation, move it into position, keep adjusting until it's just perfectly lined up however I want it to be. And this is a very different looking pumpkin than I did in my example image, and that's totally fine. But figure out however I want it here. Once it's happy, I can just keep clicking that duplicate and repeat until it goes all the way around my pumpkin shape. So this is today's pumpkin compared to the other day when I did more sharp corners. This one is a little bit more round. And this one that I just created happens to have a hole in the middle. This one did not have a hole in the middle. So if you ended up with a hole like I did, you can go over here into your basic shapes and just grab like a cylinder or something and slide it into the middle there to fill that hole and just scale it up until you've got something that is looking exactly the way you might want it to. Same thing on the bottom, you can adjust the scale here so you don't cut off too much at the bottom with your cylinder. All right, now as I said, I'm going to repeat that all again because I went through that really quick. All right, deleting all but my very first sort of one of these, my fan shape. And with that selected, first thing we want to do is use the duplicate and repeat button to create a copy of it in exactly the same place. Then I'm going to use this double-sided arrow here to rotate it until I like the angle. I can adjust. But at this point, I'm mostly just adjusting its orientation. I'm adjusting its position and its rotation. So for my middle schoolers, this is all of your transformations right there. This is your rotations, translations. We did a mirror. This is all of your geometry that you're studying. But you're using it in the real world. I use this stuff all the time when I do 3D design, so it's actually really useful. And once it's lined up the way you like it, you can just keep clicking that stack of papers and it will just keep rotating around. So I lined it up slightly differently this time. Notice I didn't get quite as clean of a connection. I can just do duplicate and repeat one more time. And this isn't perfect, but neither is the real world. Imperfection is actually a really good way to make things look lifelike. If you think about real pumpkins, real apples, anything real in the world, nothing is perfectly symmetrical. Nothing is perfectly smooth and round. Even, if you look closely at something like a cherry that might seem perfectly round, there are some inconsistencies, and that's how you make something look really real. The last thing, of course, is to add your stem, and you're going to do that the same way I filled the hole earlier, is by using the cylinder tool and bring it into your scene and then line it up. Now to scale vertically, I didn't really show this part very well. We used the scaling on the bottom area for some of our earlier things, but to scale vertically, you use the white square at the top. And I can bring this all the way up and even above the top of my pumpkin before adjusting it, X and Y axes scales. It's just, bring it around. I want to make sure I have something big enough that's going to cover this hole. But because nothing in the real world is perfect, I'm not worried about keeping this a perfect circle. You could go ahead and do your stem using the scribble tool again. You could use a whole bunch of shapes to make your, stem curl one direction or another. Or you can even use the cool cone button here. And when I bring the cone in, I can adjust the base radius here and the top radius to be different amounts and bring the height down. I'm just adjusting all of these. I'm playing with these different commands over here until I get something I like, but you can create a very interesting sort of a tapered shape here if you want something that's not perfectly cylindrical. So I gave you a couple different options for that you can do. Just make sure that if you are going to be 3D printing this, that everything fully overlaps, and that before sending this to your teacher, you take everything and group it together. That will get it ready and easy for printing. And to my teachers, from here, you will take your student designs and click on the export button. And you can either export it as an STL, if that's something that works with your specific 3D printer splicer, or if you have a robo printer, you can actually go into the 3D print side of this and send it over to RoboCloud using the Robo button here. And so that will allow you to print it wirelessly. if you want to know how to combine multiple of your students' designs into a single print file to print them faster, you can always do that using some copy and paste things. We have videos on our YouTube page showing how to do that. So I'm going to let that sink. These become pretty big files with all these details, but I wanted to let you all know for the teachers, we have another podcast coming up. Braden and I will be back on October 17th, giving you some tips for how to tweak any of your student designs before 3D printing them, just to ensure successful 3D printing. So we didn't really get into what works well, what doesn't work as well for 3D printing. And so we're going to do a whole podcast on that. And you can sign up to join live for that, or of course, we will always send out the recordings to anyone who registered but was unable to join live. So that link is in the chat for you. Thank you so much for joining today, and I'll stick around for some questions if anyone still has those. But I'm so glad you were able to join, and I can't wait to see your pumpkins. So teachers, email me with those pumpkins. I'd love to see what your students were able to create. I've dropped my email there in the chat for you. Thank you. I need more practice. Like I said, I have been doing this for quite a while. I went to school for this. It is definitely a skill that takes time to perfect, but it is so much fun to play with, and you can do some really cool things the more you practice. Happy 3D modeling, y'all!